Next speaker is Derek Dunn, and he's with the iRODS Consortium, and he's going to be giving a talk on the iRODS CLI we deserve.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Derek. As you've already heard, I've been with the consortium for all of 3 months, which means clearly I know everything and I'm never wrong. So now that we're all full from lunch, let's jump into this and hopefully it won't put you to sleep. Go. Let's get started. So we'll be talking about what are I commands, which very presumptuous of me to tell you guys what I commands are. Why is the new CLI necessary? So I make everyone mad and say why we need a new one, what we're trying to do with it, what I've already done with it, all the many things I still have to do, and stuff that I'd like to do. So, presumptuous bit, the I commands are traditional client program, interacts with iRODS, you know them, ILS, ICD, I make a call, whatever. If 50 binaries, they all do different things, 50 source files, compile each of them, get a binary out, very cool. They're written in C, and then kind of C++ was tacked on afterward. And they've been here basically forever. I looked in the Git logs. Apparently, the first commit with them was 15 years ago. So it's old enough to get a learner's permit. And now I get to make my former and current compatriots mad because hours into this. So why do we need a new one? Well, first of all, for 50 different binaries, they don't kind of like meld together. We kind of like one single cohesive thing that just does all the other stuff. It is mostly written kind of like C, but C++ E kind of added afterwards. So you get all your fun C stuff in there. You'll see some mem copies everywhere. So C, freeze, scary stuff. So because it's a bunch of C, it's not very friendly. And you know how much people love reading C. I mean, I do, but this is not really its fault, since it's old enough to get a learner's permit. People have probably built automation around it, and if you change the output significantly, it'll break stuff, and we don't like breaking stuff. And it has hard dependencies on the main iRODS repo. So here's a fun little shell command I threw together. Basically, it takes every single one of the I commands and looks for a corresponding util library in the main repo. And there are 19 of them, which is a pretty big chunk. So what are the goals? I mean, it's almost directly from the previous one. We want easy to comprehend. We want it easy to add more stuff to it. It to be easy, like in words. We want at least some kind of feature parity with the original I commands, or it doesn't do the exact same thing. We want it as expressive and as powerful. We want to use modern C++ stuff, both iRODS C++ stuff and external C++ stuff. And we want it easy to deploy because 50 binaries is lame. So to each point, how far have I gotten on that? Well, for comprehensibility, it's written from scratch and it uses a lot of boost, uses more iRODS stuff. A lot of the stuff has line of code reduction because some stuff like, let's say move, for example, if you use the modern libraries like iRODS file system, thank you, Corey, it'll do a bunch of the stuff that you don't really need to check for things like non-existent paths or path names being too long. You just kind of run it and catch exceptions, which is cool. And of course, no hard main repo dependencies, because say ls has ls-util, which is the bulk of where its functionality is. So if you really wanted to make a huge change to it, you either write it from scratch or change the main repo, neither of which is preferable. So yeah, it just acts like any other client. You don't get to be special. And as far as comprehensibility, we use a single base binary, kind of like Docker IP, get IP route, whatever, Docker container, whatever, those kinds of things. So this is an example invocation, iRODS, and then ls, and get my cool output there. And here I just do a bunch more things. And the output looks kind of like that. This is what it's like to pass a flag to it. The output format is still subject to change. That's just something I threw together. As far as being extensible, there's an abstract class. It's short enough so I can put it in here in bold so you can see it against the weird pineapple ring thing there. And it's got 4 things: name, description, help text, what it does. And you can also load modules dynamically at runtime, but I'll talk more about that later because I added cool stuff to it and I want to gush about it. So as far as feature parity goes, there is a ways to go, but we have 13 commands. Most of the sort of logical pathy ones can be implemented pretty simply through iRODS file system. Thank you again, Corey. And yeah, use a bunch of the modern C++ libraries when possible. And my favorite part. So I added this fairly recently. You can link all of the subcommands into the binary either statically or load them dynamically at runtime through the power of CMake magic. So you can build it and it looks like this, just one binary, or it can also look like this thing if you want. And if you want to switch between doing either the former or the latter thing, you can edit the CMake lists at the root of the repo, change it from that to that. And who cares? So what does that actually do? Well, for example, let's say we did the first thing and we built it with all the commands statically linked. So your one binary, that's iRODS, does everything. This first line here shows that that's the directory that it loads the dynamic plugins in, and it's completely empty. And yes, I know if a directory is empty, it doesn't actually print anything. And so it's more readable. Don't nail me on that. If you load everything at runtime, I do the same thing, and then try to run it, says it doesn't exist. Move all of the build stuff into that directory, and it works again. Cool. And because of that, you can basically do like a customized build. You can deploy however you like. So here's a funny example where I just do ls statically and the rest dynamically. And that's what happens. Can't run anything else except for ls built in unless you have the plugins loaded. All right, what else is there to do? Well, this project is effectively a baby, so still have 14 years and 9 months worth of effort to catch up with, minimum. Some of the commands are not feature complete because they work with scary features that I, in my infinite wisdom, have not been able to see yet. Any documentation for pretty much everything, real man pages, what stuff does. I haven't written help messages because I'm lazy and bad. Please forgive me. Experimented thinking about a template project for the new CLI commands. Corey mentioned template projects for other stuff before. You can add one for this too. If you want to make a new CLI command, just take out all the boilerplate and write C++ to your heart's desire. Code normalization. Some of my using namespace names are really bad and inconsistent. Like there's a boost file system and an iRODS file system, and I name them all weird things all the time. It's bad. Some of the code is unnecessarily paranoid. I mentioned that line of code reduction. Truth is, I don't really do that, and I wrote it all super paranoid. So I think MV still does check for non-existent paths and stuff, which is bad. And of course, tests. No tests. My commands of tests need to be better. Now, if that wasn't enough, there's more stuff that I potentially want to do. Possibly add JSON output for all the commands. This is Terrell's idea. Want it to work on all platforms because apparently AI commands don't play well with Mac. And then moving on, it's got the modular system, so whatever the community wants to make, be easily integrated or tested or tried out or whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Thanks, Derek. Any questions?
Oh, no.
Super cool. So what is the future of all of the parallel operations? So if you do an IMV, you have a deep collection, you're going to be moving a billion files, or you do an iREPL or whatnot.
I think MV is just a rename, right? But if for something copy,
Well, yeah, it is just a rename, but you have to rename all the physical paths.
oh,
Right.
yeah, right,
And touch all the file systems too.
right.
So that was currently maintained on the client side of things, which is why you have lots of big ugly files
Mhm.
that are maintained in the server repo. So how are we going to address that?
I think there are libraries for doing parallel file system operations. I remember seeing it while I was going through the code. Not entirely sure. I'm trying to implement it the best of my ability, I guess.
We certainly have not addressed how we're going to handle those things, but as you pointed out, moving offloading that work to the server would be highly beneficial because I mean we have several clients, right? And so if we move to the server, that means all of them can leverage that facility, right? And so we certainly have to think through how we're going to approach that. But this gives us the space to experiment as well as come up with new ways to solve problems that address these needs, right? Because for example, iMeta has some issues around its interface. And so this is one of the prime candidates that we need to refactor and introduce a new interface so that we avoid the limitations reported by people in the community.
Okay, second question. Are we still going to maintain bulk operations? Because I didn't see any of that in the HTTP interface.
That's right. That was actually one of the items that we have to think about. It's not clear exactly how we want to approach that just yet. Just like with the HTTP API, the CLI is very early. And so I don't imagine these things will be available, next week or in the coming months, but who knows, maybe by next UGM, we'll have something that's more fleshed out and we can talk more about it. We have some virtual questions. We have some.
Yes, this is from Mustafa. How are the iAdmin, iTicket, iMeta, iGroup admin subcommands going to be integrated into iRODS? in terms of the end user. For example, iRODS meta ad. And I'm not sure if that's referring to the interactive mode or not, but
Right. I mean, I figure we could just make subcommands of subcommands there. I mean, Corey hates interactive mode, so it probably won't happen. He made a face when we talked about it in prep, so.
Right.
Right, so subcommands most likely.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Derek.